Good morning, my fellow scientists. It is Wednesday, April 3rd, 2017. I want to talk about an interesting paper on redox flow batteries linked to me by a commenter. Thank you very much for the comment and the suggestion. I think this is a really interesting paper. So why the big interest in batteries? So in places like the Pacific Northwest, as reported by the Oregonian, sometimes there is actually excess electricity supply. Renewables, high flow from the mountains into hydroelectric dams have all resulted in so much power capacity available that we don't know what to do with it. There are more megawatts being generated than there is demand for megawatts, and unfortunately there's no way to store those megawatts for use later. You generate them when you use them. That's not a problem for a fossil fuel power plant where you can just turn down the burner, so to speak, but for a wind power plant, when you can't generate it for the consumers who want it, you lose it, and that happened back in 2011. Some of the wind capacity had to be curtailed and dumped, essentially. In response to that, over the last few years, batteries have been growing in popularity as a way to buy cheap, discounted excess renewable energy for a discount, sell it back during peak demand hours at a profit. Really neat opportunity. I think it's going to grow bigger as renewable energy gets even cheaper. How do you store that energy? Well, you need batteries. So right here, right across the border from where I live in Idaho, in Washington State, at the Washington State University, there is a huge flow battery that has been constructed with their engineering team, where they have made a vanadium redox flow battery to store lots of energy and give that back to the consumer when they need it. Really neat idea. I talked about how vanadium redox flow batteries work in yesterday's video. There's a link below. Links for all these articles are, of course, below. But there's a new flow battery on the horizon here, published 2 years ago in Energy and Environmental Science, that uses iron and zinc instead of the relatively expensive vanadium. Now, using a cheap material in a very expensive battery, like a flow battery, has less of an advantage, but still, the going to a ridiculously cheap material like iron or zinc is unquestionably going to pull the cost down and go toward a more sustainable technology. In this case, the Zinc Iron Redox flow battery is very cheap, and the way it works, if we can scroll down here, is you have a zinc to zinc hydroxide cell on one side, the negative electrolyte, and a iron 2, iron 3 couple on the far side of the positive electrolyte. And so zinc's getting oxidized, and that is giving up electrons. Those electrons are used to reduce iron, and you get a net flow of electrons that you can use to do whatever. As I talked about yesterday, there's always this risk that you're going to end up with zinc crossing your cell and ending up in your iron side, or iron crossing the cell and ending up in your zinc side. And that doesn't just discharge the battery, it makes it less chargeable. It actually degrades the battery because now you have contamination in your other cell. And they solved this problem with a middle electrolyte, where they actually just have a buffer electrolyte that absorbs any possible crosstalk between the cells and maintains ion connectivity between them. So really clever. I think it's a neat solution to a persistent problem, and I think this is going to be an interesting thing going forward. Tune back in tomorrow when we talk more about batteries and chemistry and do-it-yourself batteries based on iron here in the Allen Lab.